Hello again, I am Jim Bob and welcome back to another episode of Estancia Lapacho, our Farming Simulator 17 Platinum Farm. I brought some supplies back from the warehouse over there, just to help top up what we have over here. I've actually used up quite a bit already, used more than half of our fertilizer pallets over here. We had 6, I've used 4 already. So I brought another 4, and I've also brought some additional seed pallets as well. Probably actually could do with another few fertilizer pallets. I brought 1 more liquid pallet as well, because one of these is half empty, and we are going to have some spraying to do now that our crops are all planted. So let's just take a quick look at our map. You can see now that we have these 2 fields both sort of planted with sugarcane. This field here, field 14, I've actually resculpted this field a little bit. So I've actually extended it out a little bit in terms of length down here, and also in width this end as well. And you can see I've actually rolled it back a little bit because I went a little bit too far. But I kind of cut into this area a little bit here, and I've also extended it down here as well. It does mean that this little strip just here, just this first pass, is a little bit problematic with the AI. This is actually off the side of where the field was. The field was about here, I think, and I've got it out to about here. So this little bit here, from like the crest of that hill there where the cursor is, down to about here, it kind of stops on the AI from about here. But it's just really on this first pass, and then the AI is fine for the rest of it. As you can see, it's seeded. This is with soybean. And again, you can see I've tidied up this edge, rolled it back a little bit, just to keep this edge nice and clean and smooth. Just simply because we have these bushes here, and I didn't want these sort of getting in the way while we were harvesting. And then again, I've extended it down here as well. The field did start, I think, around about here. So I've actually extended it down this much as well. So quite a nice sizable little extension onto field 14, make it a little bit bigger, get some more crop off that field there. And then if we jump back up to here, you can see that both of these 2 fields have now been fully planted with sugarcane. And as a result, I have now also got rid of the single row billet planter. That's gone. I actually used up pretty much the last of the fertilizer that was in there, and had just a tiny little bit of seed, about 600 litres of seed left in it. And rather than put more fertilizer in and end up with one or the other running out, and never both at the same time, I just got rid of it with like 600 litres of sugarcane left in it, and no fertilizer. So that's gone, and then used the double planter to not only finish this, but then to finish this field off as well. So all of that is done. We just need to wait for this to grow now. That's going to be a long time. Obviously, we'll have our soybean crop over there that'll come in way before that. But we need to start earning some cash again. So we're going to start doing a little bit of contract work again in this episode. So I'm going to jump onto field 3. We've got a corn harvest here. You can see I've done a little bit of work on for this farmer. Not a huge amount, but just a little bit. I think 2 jobs worth. That's given us a little boost in our rating of friendship with that farmer. So it's brought the cost of that field down a little bit. Obviously, we want it a lot lower than that if we're planning to buy this field in the future. The cheaper we can make it, the better. Plus, this is a harvesting job, so we'll get a nice, good payday out of this particular one here. Let me see if I can run this one in first person, seeing as it's corn, so should be reasonably easy to keep track of where we are on the field, because it's a row crop. We can actually see where it's feeding into our header. It means we should be able to keep in a nice straight line all the way down. So actually, what I'm going to do as well, it's not going to be affected while we are on a contract work. Whenever we take on a contract, time automatically slows down to real time. Same as if you're actually in the contract menu. When you first sort of click your stick to pull up the option of a job, time immediately at that point stops running at whatever time you set, and just goes to real time. And then once you either back out of that mission or accept the mission and then complete it, then time will resume to whatever speed you have it set at. So at the moment we're running at real time, even though I've just set it to 15 times. It means that time will run nice and fast between the kind of contract work that we do, which will in turn hopefully get our crops a little bit closer to their next stage of fertilization. It's going to be 2 cycles of growth on our soybean before we see any activity on these fields here with our sugarcane. So we might even get 2 harvests out of our soybean field before we even, are ready to harvest on this field, on our sugarcane, which gives us plenty of time to earn the money that we need to be able to afford the harvester. We need 350,000, and our loan is pretty much maxed out again. I maxed the loan out to buy some additional supplies. I think we may have just a tiny little bit of it left, but really not much at all. So we are now in sort of financial recovery mode. Our soybean crop is probably not going to get us a huge amount of money when it's ready, so it's going to go into storage. We're going to sell it. Sorry, we're going to keep it rather than sell it. And we're going to start building up a reserve for when we get either another stellar price or hopefully a great demand at a stellar price with a large volume, so that we can make a nice big pile of cash. So that means our main source of income up until that point is going to be relying on contract work. We're going to do a lot of contract work while we're waiting for these fields to grow and our sugarcane to be ready, because otherwise we're never going to raise the $350,000 that we need to buy the harvester. If worse comes to worse, we can always lease one, but I would rather avoid paying 20-something thousand to lease it, then pay the hourly lease costs on top of that, when I could just be using that money to put towards actually owning one outright. There comes a point where leasing is only really good if it's a piece of equipment that you don't want to buy. Leasing is only really good, and even then, in those situations, and even then only in the short term. If it's in a piece of equipment that you want to buy, and it's a big expensive piece like our case harvester, then invariably the longer you have one on lease, the more it's going to cost you, and that's just money that you could have put towards a harvester being thrown down the drain, essentially. So it just means I'm going to be very, very busy doing a lot of contract work. I won't bore you with multiple episodes of nothing but we'll do what we can. We'll do a few missions here, we'll do a few missions there. Obviously we'll have nice little breaks from that by looking after our crops in terms of spraying. But beyond that, we have nothing else that we can do. It's now purely down to just contracting. We don't have any other fields. We just have that one crop field. So until that's ready to harvest, it's contracting work and the odd fertilization run. So our farm is going to jump forward in time between episodes quite a bit, because otherwise you're just going to get lots and lots of footage of me doing nothing but contracting. There we go, it's another pass done. I'm looking forward to actually getting some new fields so that we can start playing around with different crops. The more land we have to work, the more we can plant, the more money we can raise by selling those different crops. So I think, you know, ideally... Oh, hang on a minute. When did I buy Field 3? No, I didn't buy it. I'm working it on a contract. It must just be lit because that's the field that I'm on. I thought I actually owned Field 3 for a second then because it's got a big green number on it. But no, apparently, no. That kind of threw me for a second then. Completely forgot I was actually in the middle of a contracting job on this field. So yeah, Field 3 here, the one that we're on, is obviously going to be a nice field for us to own. But it's going to be an expensive field. It's currently 250 grand. And that's a way off being affordable, especially considering we need the harvester before we need this field. But fields 4 and 5 are definitely more achievable for quick purchases once we have got our harvester out of the way. And because of the way they're positioned and shaped, we can join those two fields together quite comfortably. Turn them into a single field, sort of mirroring the distance of field 6, and then potentially we could even join them together with field 6 in the future when we possess that field. I'm not entirely sure whether my plan going forward is going to be to sort of buy, you know, well, obviously I'm going to buy the entire block of fields that you see on the map there, but I'm not sure whether the plan is going to be to join them all into one big super field or not. If I do, that's essentially going to become a crop field, which would then mean we would need to probably look at moving our sugarcane operation to another part of the map, because trying to plant that field with sugarcane would just take an eternity to do. It would produce way more sugarcane than we would be able to handle, and it would take an eternity not just to plant but to harvest as well. So I think, you know, if we did end up making a big field there, you know, in this little cluster north of our farm of sort of 2, 6, 3, 4 and 5, it would just be so big that it would have to be a crop field of some kind. We could even throw field 1 into that mix as well. So we would need to, you know, look at other fields for sugarcane. So maybe fields 7 and 8, or maybe we could take field 15. Actually, you see, I like the idea of field 15 being a crop field down with 14, maybe even 13 as well, have crops down there. If I keep these fields kind of separated out, I can turn them into kind of decent sized sugar pastures. So what I'm kind of thinking in my head is field 1 to kind of stay as is, as a sugarcane field, field 2 to stay as is, field 3 to be a sugarcane field, and then 4 and 5 to be joined together, made into one field, and then 6 to be a standalone field, and have those as just a cluster of sugarcane fields, and then everything else we would look at doing sort of crop on. So, you know, 13, 14 and 15 would be crop fields down there, 7 and 8 would probably be crop fields as well, maybe even field 1. Field 1 we could maybe do poplar on. I'm hoping that by that point we'll certainly have enough money to buy our New Holland forage harvester. So there's plenty kind of options for us going forward. It's just a case of earning enough money to purchase the land and then deciding what we want to do with it, how we want to distribute it amongst our sort of farm operation. I'm very, very curious as to just how much sugarcane we're going to produce off our two fields over there. It's going to be an awful lot, that much I do know, and I'm pretty sure that field 2 on its own is probably going to produce more than we can handle in our storage, or be very, very close to it at the very least. I'm trying to remember, we got about, what, 200,000 litres I think it was? No, wait, no, more than that. We sold 200,000 litres. We sold 199,999 litres. And then we had another give or take what we put into the seeder already, we had probably another 60. So we had about 260,000 litres or so that we got off of field 14. And that was a field that, although we fully fertilised it, wasn't ploughed. So we lost 10% of its potential yield straight away. Now, bearing that in mind, and the fact that 14 was at the time smaller than field 1, that means we're probably looking at a fully fertilised and harvested, and ploughed field of field 1, giving us a yield somewhere in the region of 300,000. And I would say field 2 is 2.5 to 3 times the size of that field. So at least, eyeballing it, it looks to be 2.5 to 3 times the size. So if we work on that assumption, that means we're looking at around about 8 to 900,000 litres of sugarcane on field 2. Our current storage capacity in our great big silo just over there is 800,000. So yeah, field 2 has the potential to completely fill our silo on its own. When you add in field 1 on top of that as well, that's an awful lot of sugarcane. That's 1.2 million litres potentially. An awful lot, and definitely more than we can handle at our storage capacity. And then factoring that in ahead, and you add in field 6 and field 4 and 5 and even field 3, we are definitely going to need more of those silos, because there's no way we'll be able to store the sugarcane from all of those fields. Absolutely no way at all. It just would not be possible. So we're going to need probably another 2 or 3 of those. So if we look at the map, the question is, where do we put them? They need to be reasonably close to the farm, because otherwise what's the point? But there isn't a lot of space sort of left around by the farm, unless we sacrificed field 14, for example, and turned that into a sugarcane storage area. Now, obviously that is not something I want to entertain at this stage, because A, we don't have the sugarcane volume that's going to require another 2 or 3 of those silos yet, and B, that's our only crop field that we have right now. So that would be, to suddenly just lose that field would be disastrous. We'd be totally dependent on a low income crop that admittedly we get a lot of, but it would be a low income crop none the same, that takes an eternity to grow and an eternity to harvest. So yeah, it would cost us an absolute fortune in terms of maintenance fees compared to income, because we'd be working on a substantially slower income, and it would cost us a huge amount in wages as well. The number of hours required to get that equipment up and running would be phenomenal. If we lived purely on sugarcane, we would burn out our equipment so quickly that by the time we actually got some income from those fields, we'd have put multiple hours on multiple pieces of equipment compared to just regular farming. So yeah, there's a lot of things to think about. It's all very well going into this endeavour saying we're going to do nothing but sugarcane on most of these fields, but the practical realities of that are not as straightforward. We have to, as I say, take into account storage, maintenance costs, seeding costs, fertilizer costs, wages. There's a lot of different things that are going to cause, a lot of different issues for us if we do nothing but sugarcane. So we have to have some crops to bring in money while our sugarcane is going through its growth stages. sun seems to have set really quickly. I'm wondering if the 15 times is actually active. Maybe that's changed. 'Cause it does seem considerably darker outside than when we first started this contract mission, and we've not been on it that long. We've only been going for what, about 15 minutes. I don't know. See what time it is on the clock when we get out, but I get the feeling that maybe time is moving faster than I thought it was. If so, that's a recent change, because it never used to do that. Maybe that was something that was changed in patch 1.5.1. Or maybe I just happened to get in the cab as the light was going through this transitional phase. If it gets much darker before we finish this mission, I suppose that might give us a clearer indication. Obviously we can't pull up the time until we finish the job. We have no, clock in here that's linked to the in-game clock, and we don't see the in-game clock until the countdown's finished. Well, I do wonder if maybe it is later in the day than I thought it was. Let's get our working lights on. Haven't got much of this field left to do now. Should get a nice little payday as well for doing this field. Nothing substantially large, but large enough, I think. Large enough to give us a decent little payout, plus a good little time bonus as well, I hope. And if you are doing contract work, a little sort of tip I would give you is if you have a field with a sloping angle on one side of it like this, always start at the far end of that slope, so that you're actually running in a straight line longer before you have to turn. That way you're just harvesting more of the field. It means if you were to work from the opposite side, if you work from the side of the field that I started over there and work your way this way, you would get the job done faster on contract work than if you started at that corner of the field over there and then worked over to that side, simply because you'd be harvesting longer per pass. You'd be making fewer turns overall, so you should theoretically actually finish the job a little bit quicker. It won't be by much, but when time bonuses come into it, it doesn't need to be by much. The smallest little extra bit of cash can make all the difference sometimes. I mean, you saw last time out when I wanted to pick something up and I was literally just a couple of dollars short. Sometimes those extra couple of dollars can make all the difference. I have noticed, you can see it, there's kind of like a little light show going on the field. I've noticed that, recently over the last couple of episodes. Certain angles, you just get stuff dancing over the fields like that. It's a little bit weird. It's only at certain camera angles, and then once you move it kind of disappears and then reappears again. Right there, you can see it through the cab window, look, just dancing on that field. So this should be our final pass. I think once we've completed this pass, that'll be it. I mean, we may potentially need to just turn a little bit, but I think this is it now. Once we get towards the end of the row, the job will finish, and it's definitely got darker. I think time might be moving at 15 times, you know. Look how dark it is now compared to earlier. The sun's almost completely set. You can just see a little orange glow over there, over the hills. So I think, yeah, 15 times must be active. That's got to be a recent change. Never ever used to do that. They always used to slow time down to ×1 whenever you went into a job offer or or actually working a job. Or maybe it's just a unique feature of this map. I don't tend to do much contracting outside of Big Bud Farm, and obviously kind of on hiatus from that farm right now until the new year. So it's not like I've had a lot of time to kind of check that. And there we go. Job is done. So 18,500, time bonus of 7.3. We're up to 42,000. Let's go into our finances. There we go. Let's pay off 40 grand of our loan debt. Yeah, that's kind of weird. We're at regular time outside of the job, so the job moved at 15 times, but regular time is now back at ×1. So maybe we changed the job time speed rather than game speed. Very, very strange. Right, do we have any growth yet on field 14? No, it's still in the planted stage. Okay, and I think I just saw a great demand pop up. Oh, it's still the great demand for the sugarcane, isn't it? We still haven't quite finished that. You can see the transport company price has rebounded back to 1995 again. Now, that was very strange. Very strange indeed. So let's take on another job on this field. And this time we are using a black Voucher S. And at some point we will end up with one of these on our farm. Obviously we'll be painting it orange, but we will at some point have an S series Voucher. Very little need for it right now. We don't need a 300 plus horsepower tractor on our farm. I think the starting power of these is 350, and they go up to around 400 horsepower. A bit of a wonky start. Let's try and get straight. There we go. Unfortunately, because of my view angle, I can't actually see the entire piece of equipment on the screen anymore. So if I were to have the view degree of say 60 degrees, then I would be able to see everything. But because it's set at 50, I can't see the boom arm at the back. So for me, when I use these, it's usually easier for me to sort of look back at the equipment or just tip the camera really far forward like that, so I can actually see where the turn is coming up and where I'm sitting on the field. But to go overhead like I like to do when I'm doing spraying or fertilising, I can't do with the really big equipment like this, because I can't see it all on the screen. So let's make the turn. Straighten her up. There we go. Get ready for the next turn. This mission will be over really quickly. We won't get paid much money for this one, but it will improve our relationship with the farmer again, which means this field will come down in price, and any other fields that he owns will also come down in price as well. I think he might be the guy who owns field 29, which is $940,000 brand new, unboosted by or undiscounted. Yeah, it's definitely dark, isn't it? Very strange. find a line. Here we go. I've got my right hand wheel on a line on the farm on the field that I'm following to make sure that I kind of stay in a straight line. Got a little bit of an overlap, but that's okay. Because we did drift in field ever so slightly, so that overlap, as you can see, is starting to get smaller and smaller. Plus we have actually drifted ever so slightly as well. Right, there's our turn. And then this should complete coverage on the field. Of course we won't get all the way down. There we go. Very quick and easy job, this one. Literally just took a couple of minutes. Nice little bit of extra cash. So we might get 3,000 or 4,000 in total for this, including the time bonus. If we're really lucky, we'll get a little bit more than that, but I can't see it somehow. Oh no, we did. Look, we got 3.5 for the job. Well, over 3.5, and then just under 1.5. So around about 5,000, just over 5,000 there for the job. That's not bad. I'll take that any day. And now he doesn't have any work for us, but you can see the field's come down again. It's now only 240,000. Relationship has improved even more. Let's quickly jump over to field 29, just see whether he owns this one as well. No, this is a separate farmer. This one is 941,000. Very pricey field there. So let's take a look at field 4. This guy, I've done quite a few jobs with him, as you can see already. So let's see if we can get something a little bit different. We haven't used the Lambo. Let's do a quick fertilizing mission with the Lamborghini. I'd be amazed if we actually saw, if there were Lamborghinis in Brazil. I just get the feeling it's not exactly one of those brands that would sell over there. Let's take a look on the inside. Pretty nice control layout over here. Dashboard looks pretty old-fashioned, I have to say. So I wonder what age this piece of equipment is. Looks to me sort of maybe early 2000s, at a guess, I would say, perhaps. I have absolutely no idea, no idea, so I could be way off on that. I could be spot on. Should probably look it up at some point. It does share a very similar kind of body to the at least the rear end is very, very similar to the Deutz-Fahr though. The Series 7. I mean, they are made by the same company, and you can see it also shares the same light display at the front as the Same Fortis. Because once again, Same, Lamborghini, Deutz-Fahr, they're all part of the same group. That also includes Hurlimann as well. We are actually doing a Same Deutz-Fahr themed farm on Deutz Farm, my little playlist on Altenstein. I have to make sure I get some more episodes of that up at some point soon. Yeah, it's one of those weird tractors, the Lamborghini, that I never use them. I don't know why I never used the Lamborghini ever, really. It's not quite there for me. I prefer the Deutz-Fahr Series 7 to the Lamborghini in terms of just its visual style, even though there's very little difference between the two. but I also identify with the Deutz-Fahr brand a little bit more than I do with Lamborghini. And you know, they are essentially, you know, in terms of price and power, etc., identical. But this is the only Lamborghini in the game. Oh, I mean, in the past we've had the little Lambo. I did use them a little bit on Farming Sim 15, both the smaller one and this one as well, but haven't really used this apart from the odd contract mission. I've never used this on any of my farms, you know, let's play or not. It's just one of those tractors that for whatever reason I've just never really connected with. And when I started Deutz Farm, I did say, you know, potentially we have the possibility for adding in a Lamborghini into that map, but given that it's a Deutz Fahr themed farm and it's identical to the Series 7, which is a Deutz Fahr tractor, why wouldn't I just use the Deutz Fahr Series 7 on my Deutz themed farm? So it's just the opportunities for me to use one of these on one of my Let's Plays are so limited. I don't know if I'll ever actually use one outside of the odd contract mission that pops up. It's not a bad looking tractor. I don't know, like I say, it just looks sort of 90s at the front and a little bit more modern at the back, but it does feel a little dated. And when it comes to a choice between this and, as I say, a Series 7, the Series 7 is going to win every time. It's a bit of a shame, really. It's just one of those tractors I think that just can't help but be overlooked. If you're a fan of the Lambo and you use it a lot, then you know, fair play to you. You know, for me, I'm just, like I say, it's just one of those tractors that I just never seem to get around to using. A little bit like the old Hurleyman, you know, the smallest tractor, or you know, the first tractor in the game. It's like 40 grand. Yeah, I used them on Farming Sim 15 because they were always your starting tractor on either Bjornholm or Westbridge Hills. On Bjornholm you got one, I think. Or did you get two? I might have had two of them. There were definitely two on Westbridge Hills, because there were two of those, two of the Agro Stars, and then one of the Bureau as well. And so, you know, because I always ended up having to use them to, you know, when I first started out on a farm, I just kind of naturally avoided them like the plague when Farming Sim 17 came out. Same as the Comia C6 Combine, because it was there, you know, every time I started a new farm, that's your harvester. It's just, I avoided it like the plague until we started Deutz Farm. Nice little bit of extra cash there as well. That's another 15 grand that we have. Let's take a look at field 5. This one's down to 92,000. Oops, I didn't mean to try and buy that field. There we go. Get a quick spray job done using the T6. Now, we recently talked about the spray tank add-on for the Terra the Terra variant. I think, you know, I haven't tried, but I'm wondering whether or not I could connect this up. Apologies for the brief drop there. So we've lost a little bit of time as a result of that, but we're back up and running again. But yeah, I was saying, I think, you know, potentially you could fit this spray unit to the back of the Terra variant. I know that you could definitely pull the Metris sprayer behind the Terra variant, but I wonder whether you could actually fit this to the back of it. That's something I want to try as well, because that would make it a little bit more compact little bit easier to control. And it wouldn't feel like it was in competition with the large, self-propelled sprayers instead. It would feel, more like it was just in competition with a tractor, because essentially that's what the Terra Variant is. It's just quite a sort of a long stretched tractor in many respects. Kind of a truck tractor hybrid. So the ability to sort of run one of these off the back of a Variant with a 25,000 litre tank mounted on it as well. No, not 25,000 litre, sorry, 2,500 litre tank. Means that you could actually get a huge amount of stuff done on fields that are more suited to this kind of working width for a sprayer than something like the Metris or the Imperador. Something that we will be getting on our farm is the Imperador. And I can't actually see where I've sprayed. Oh, there's the line. Just see it. These lights are not helping, bizarrely enough. It's getting so dark now, it's almost impossible to see what I'm doing clearly, but it's easier to see the dark patches on the field where I've sprayed like this than it is with the light shining on them. Now I can actually see now where I need to turn. So apologies if this is a little bit dark on your screen. It's just making it easier to me for me to actually know when to turn and where to be lined up against. There we go. There's the turn again. Kind of just on autopilot for a second then, wasn't paying attention. But this is the final pass. So we'll be done any second now. Won't get much of a time bonus on this one, unfortunately. There we go. We lost a few hundred off our time bonus there. We're up to another 18. That's not too bad. Let's pay off another 15 of the loan. I think we've got time for one more quick job. So let's find a decent field to do. Let's have a look at field 6. It's only going to give us the integral, isn't it? Yeah. Well, I haven't used the T8 for a while. Let's do this one. This again shouldn't take very long at all. We'll probably do this in about 5 or 6 minutes. This one I can have the lights on. Let's get that tank opened up nice and quickly. Try and straighten out exactly where I want it to be. That's looking pretty good. And off we go. So again, we're going to do the same as we did on field 3. We're going to lap the field and then run up and down on the inside of our border that we're creating. And I do this for 2 reasons. One, so that we're continuously applying fertilizer to the field and not sort of having to get to the end and lift off and turn around. But also to avoid running into the other fields and potentially damaging crops. Even if it isn't necessarily working properly on this map with crop destruction, or it's a bit picky as to when it wants to work, it's still a good habit to get into, I think. As someone who does play with crop destruction on a pretty much permanent basis, I've got quite kind of very aware of driving, the effects of driving onto other fields, even if it's an AI field and not one of my own. I just try and avoid it at all costs. because who knows, I may be in a position to buy that field, and do I want to buy it when I've trashed a load of the crop on it? Probably not. I want to wait until there's another crop on it that I do want to harvest before I buy it. So it can, you know, throw a sort of a wrench into your timing schedule when it comes to purchasing land if you just drive over them with reckless abandon. See the arms sort of bouncing up and down there. That's the one thing that I think crop destruction and, you know, for real mod, you know, well, for real mods, you know, not so much crop destruction, but the ground response mod has brought so much, you know, extra life into this game in terms of, you know, movement that just wasn't there before. You know, it was just, you know, kind of permanently, didn't matter whether there was a slope on the ground, it was always a perfect, you know, perfectly smooth surface, so you never really saw your suspension bouncing around, you never really saw any kind of motion, you know, from the equipment or the vehicles. Now, you know, everything just looks a little bit more alive as you're moving around. You're seeing the equipment, you know, responding to bumps. You're seeing the suspension really sort of bouncing up and down as the cab moves and rolls from side to side. When you combine that with the tyre dirt physics and crop destruction, you know, they just, you know, the whole trio of mods just adds so much to the game. I think, at least, you know, from a PC, no, sorry, from a console point of view, you know, it just makes this so much more alive than before. You know, PC users haven't have so many mods. I keep saying, yeah, they have so many different mods, but I'm jealous of the sheer, not just the sheer number of mods, but the variety of mods as well. I mean, we got teased, you know, not that long ago with, you know, seasons showing up being flagged as a mod for console when it was actually incorrectly flagged. It was actually an update for the PC. It didn't last in there very long. It was literally only in there for like 5 minutes, if that, and then gone again. You know, they clocked on that one really quickly and very quickly took it straight off the list. But yeah, I mean, that's one of those mods that just adds so much to the game. And if we do ever get lucky enough to get a console version of that, you know, that would be amazing. I do know that Realismus did say that if he won the mod contest, he would try and work with Giants to make it console compatible. I still don't think it's a likely reality. But, you know, you can't extinguish that little flame of hope. You've got to keep that little flame burning, because on the off chance that we do actually get it, oh, how amazing would that be? It would be incredible. Maybe it's not to be with this current generation of consoles, but I do think, you know, next generation is going to be so much closer to PC. I mean, we're already a lot closer to PC than we were from, you know, PS3 to PS4, and not just in terms of the update in power. I know you look at the specs and people go, that's a piss poor, you know, set of specs for a PC, but the stuff that you can do with these, you know, piss poor spec machines is actually really impressive. And the architecture is a lot closer to PC these days as well, so it's much easier to program and code than it ever was. The PS3 had the most difficult operating system known to man, the most over-the-top complicated system. Sony love their proprietary systems, and while the Xbox systems have always been pretty consistent with each other. Sony have always, wanted to have, something completely unique, and each generation from the PS1 to the PS2 to the PS3 got harder and harder to code for. The PS3 was just insanely complicated, and that's one of the reasons why there weren't a huge number of launch titles available for the PS3 when it first came out. But I digress. We have finished doing some more contracting work. We've got an extra 10 grand we can pay off, so we're going to do that right now. And the reason I always do this is so that when midnight strikes, we'll have a slightly smaller debt figure, which means we'll pay slightly less daily interest, which is always a bonus. When we come back next time, our crops will be advanced a little bit. I might do another episode of contracting, but on different parts of the map. Let's go to fields that we haven't really looked at before. Maybe spend a bit of time over there. And then the episode over that, we should hopefully be in a position to actually buy our sugarcane harvester and start harvesting our sugarcane fields. At the very least, we'll be ready to get our grain harvest over there with our soybean crop. So thanks for watching. I am Joe Bob, and I'll be back with another episode of Estancia Lapacho and some more Farming Simulator 17 Platinum Edition footage very soon.